What's up, guys? Rick from DFS On Demand here with a preview for the Wyndham Championship. I kind of like these fields, right? It's going to be pretty weak. There's not a lot of star power, but I can smell the money this week. I can smell the bacon. It's like, here, piggy, piggy, piggy. I think it benefits the better players who know more of the guys in the field, who have a deeper knowledge of some of these guys that we would never roster on a normal week. So I think we have a little bit of an edge as opposed to, some of the big weeks where everybody comes in, every player in the field, and the pricing is really soft. So I like these weeks. So let's get into it. It's the Wyndham Championship. It's Sedgefield Country Club, which it's been the host to this tournament since 2009, I believe. Someone will correct me if I'm wrong on that. So we have really good correlation stats. We've got the course history numbers. So let's jump into it. The pricing's pretty ugly, quite honestly. If you're new to this is DFS On Demand. This is my website. These are all the tools that I put together. Webb Simpson at 11,600, and it got me thinking, have we ever seen Webb Simpson at 11,600? And the answer is pretty much no. I have the game logs here, and I have the pricing in going back to the start of this year. I have more pricing. I need to load it in. But essentially, Webb Simpson has been at least $10,000 on two occasions. $10,200 at the Fort Worth Invitational, $10,700 at the Greenbrier. He's never been anywhere close to his number this week. Those 2 weeks, he finished 47th, and he missed the cut, which are obviously not correlators for success just because he was priced over 10,000. I was actually looking at it. Of all the guys that have been priced at least 10K once this year, Webb Simpson's basically middle of the pack in terms of cuts made, in terms of DraftKings points. He falls basically right below Tony Finau. So there's a lot other golfers worse than he has been. So he's not a great guy that I love to pay $10,000 for, just on a given week, but it's certainly not terrible. His course history, absolutely elite. We'll talk more about that in a second, but Webb Simpson, your co-favorite with Henrik Stenson. Stenson's the one that's probably going to garner a lot of my attention. And if you guys follow this, I play a lot of GPPs. I prefer to be the contrarian. I prefer to zig when everyone else is zagging. And I think that's Stenson, who's coming off the missed cut at the PGA. I'll show you some numbers. Actually, I might as well just do it right now, right? Like, what's the point on waiting on this? So here is DraftKings points gained. So actually, let me see if I can refresh this real quick because I did just push an update. Let me see if this works. I just pushed it a minute ago, so I'm wondering if it's come through yet. Stenson has basically, so this is gonna populate here. So Stenson missed the cut in the last 2 weeks, but even still with that, even after these numbers adjust, he is still leading the field in DraftKings points gained. So comparative to the field, how many DraftKings points is he gaining? He still leads that number since January 1st. And then what I want to really point out here is this thing. So you guys know what I really like to do is I always like to look back at the last week and see who played in that field. And, was there anything egregious? Did someone gain a lot of strokes and then lose them putting, quite frankly, is what I like to do. And this is a really, really strange one. So first of all, there's not a lot of guys who have even who even played last week. And if they did, they didn't really make the cut. So looking at it here, there's not a lot of guys who gained strokes but lost them on the greens. I'm not counting Berger, Simpson, and Jason Kokrak, who lost, a few tenths of strokes on the putting green. Patty Harrington's the big one, who lost nearly 2 strokes per round on the greens. But then that's really it, right? Like, none of these other guys even made the cut. Like, it's really, really ugly here. So what I did is I wanted to look at Stenson specifically, and if I sort by strokes gained off the tee, Stenson had the 7th best in this field last week. If we go tee to green, Stenson is 5th best last week. If we go to approach, Stenson is basically 7th best. So he was great off the tee to green, approach. When he got around the greens, he was basically neutral. And then putting, he finished DFL. dead last in putting, tied with Patty Harrington, lost 1.8 strokes per round on the greens last week. Stenson is not normally a great putter. He usually loses about half a stroke, but that is, basically 1.3 strokes per round on the greens he lost last week, worse than normal. So I think there's plenty of room for this to come back and for him to, he was great otherwise, right? He just absolutely punted it away on the greens for 2 days. So with all that being said, I think there's plenty of reasons to be optimistic over Henrik Stenson. Outside of that, I'm actually okay with Stricker at 10,400 as kind of like a GPP flyer. He's top 5 this tournament, 2 out of the last 4 years, but 2 out of the last 3 times he's played it. Cabrera Bello played it in 2016 with a top 5. He's played well recently, finished 10th at the PGA Championship, 17th at the WGC. But Shane Lowry catches my eye at 10,000. Talk about Joaquin Niemann in a second at $9,700. There's going to be a ton of ownership there. Shane Lowry at 10,000 I think is pretty interesting. So he's popped off a couple of times on the PGA Tour this year. He has top 10s at the Fort Worth Invitational, the Memorial, the Greenbrier. And what I like about Lowry, I'm sorry, I was reading the wrong line. Excuse me. Those finishes were for Joaquin Niemann. Lowry's finishes are a 12th at the RBC Canadian and a 12th at the PGA Championship last week. Excuse me. But what I like about him is this. Let me see if I can find this real quick here. If you go... Yeah, okay, so I'm looking at the last 20 weeks. Strokes gained total in the last 20 weeks. Shane Lowry is basically 4th in this field. Andres Romero, I'm going to throw him out. He's only played 8 rounds. Lowry is 4th in this field and he's the only guy, or one of the only guys. I think he is the only guy. Yeah, he is the only guy. There's no one above him who is gaining strokes in all of the categories. So when I say that, I mean off the tee, approach, around the green, putting, and tee to green. He's gaining them in every category. To me, that's a very solid player who is not dependent on one category here. So I kind of really like Lowry in this spot. All right, let's just get this Joaquin Niemann thing over with. I love the kid, and what's not to love? He's $9,700. He should probably be more expensive if he's going to win a week. This is the type of week he's going to win it in a really poor field. If you know how I do these correlation models, I go back and look at the last 8 years of PGA Tour stats, the last 8 years of DraftKings scoring, and find out what fits. For Sedgefield, it was kind of interesting. Par 4 scoring, it's a par 70. That's no surprise. Then the next 2 are bogey avoidance and birdie or better. Those also don't surprise me because birdie or better is always important for DraftKings scoring. And then bogey avoidance because you're going to have to be like 22 under par to win this thing. Like you're not going to be able to back it up. There's going to be holes where pars are bad scores. So I think you really got to go low here. And then I got 2 driving stats. So I normally wouldn't list both these driving stats. So strokes gained off the tee was one, and then total driving popped up. Those 2 correlate, I understand. But I wanted to put total driving because, it doesn't pop up often. So to just run through Joaquin Niemann real quick. He is best in the field in par 4 scoring. He's about middle of the pack in bogey avoidance. He's best in the field in birdie or better. He is 3rd best in the field in strokes gained off the tee, and he is best in total driving. So of the 4 of the top 5 stats that I found to be the most important this week, Niemann leads or is 3rd in 4 of them, which is really, really impressive stuff. So I'll just throw that out there. While we're here, we'll run through some of the other correlated numbers. So par 4 scoring, the guys we get are Niemann, Stenson, Hunter Mahan, Ryan Moore, and Chris Kirk to round out the top 5s. Webb Simpson is 6th on that list. Ryan Moore, I think for 9,000 is pretty interesting. Usually in these weak fields, we can see him get closer to $10,000. And now that we have a couple of, we have Niemann, we have Stricker in here, Moore should probably be more expensive than $9,000. So you can kind of convince me on him. Chris Kirk at 7,500 is pretty interesting, only because he's played so much better recently than that price tag. I just don't think that fits this week. And then bogey avoidance, again, Stenson's on here again. I mean, you're going to find, I mean, Stenson also fits a lot of these key stats. So Stenson leads it. Then you get Johnson Wagner, Webb Simpson, Ryan Moore, and Chris Kirk again. So guys who are scoring well on par fours and not making a lot of birdies. Steve Stricker is here. I'll talk about Steve Stricker in a second. He's like 6th or 7th on this list. Birdie or better, so it's far and away Niemann, and then it's the other guys that we kind of understand, which are Hadley, Mitchell, Harkins, Grayson Murray. Those guys are always making birdies. Probably don't have to talk about that one too much. Strokes gained off the tee. If you wanted to buy back in on Brendan Steele, who really hasn't been that good. He's only $7,600. He's second on this list. But you do get. Let me see if I can find this real quick. I want to show you one here. Okay, if I sort by total drive. Okay, so here we go. So look at these two guys. So I'm sorted by total driving, which is basically also strokes gained off the tee. And 5th and 6th in this field are Billy Horschel and Corey Connors. And if you look at these two guys just across the list here, they're basically identical players. Okay, par 4 scoring, Horschel 4.03, Connors 4.03. Same thing. Bogey avoidance, 15.5 to 16.1. Birdie or better, 21.5 to 20.7. Strokes gained off the tee, 0.54 to 0.48, and then total driving, 124 to 125. They are literally like identical players, and Billy Horschel costs $3,100 more. Now, I actually like Billy Horschel this week, but if I like him, I guess I have to like Corey Connors, who would also seem to fit this course for a significant discount near min price. So I'll be sprinkling Corey Connors in along the way as well. All right, I said I wanted to talk about Steve Stricker, and I do. So I'm just going to flip over here and see if I can find, here's Stricker. So basically, the point of this is whenever Stricker tees it up on the PGA Tour, which is not often, he plays really, really well. So Stricker is averaging, he gained 17 DraftKings points on the field since January 1st. 6 straight tournaments he's teed it up. He's gained at least 18 DraftKings points on the field, sometimes a lot more. So the Players' Championship, he gained 30, 20 at the Fort Worth Invitational, 24 at the FedEx St. Jude, 18 at the U.S. Open. That was his worst in this run. And then 22 and 21 at the RBC Canadian, or at the John Deere Classic and the RBC Canadian, respectively. So when he plays really well. This is a course where wedge players seem to really make hay. We know Stricker can putt the heck out of the ball. At $8,300, he's also going to find his way into a lot of my lineups as well. And then while we're here, I'll throw it over to. I'll actually just pull up the strokes gain numbers for historically for the Wyndham, which look a little bit like this. So if we're looking at just kind of strokes gain total for the entirety of the Wyndham in which I have strokes gain stats, which is 2010, since 2010, a lot of small sample sizes. So Ollie Snyder-Jans leads the way, but he's only played 6 rounds. Then Sergio Garcia is next. He's only played 8. Richie Werenski's only played 4. So really small sample sizes at the top. And then Webb Simpson is 4th, basically gaining 2 strokes per round in his Wyndham Championship career, which is really, really impressive because he has by far the biggest sample size. Like that is a big sample size to be really, really elite in. So Webb is gonna garner a lot of my dollars. Even at 11,600, assuming I can make some lineups with him, he seems to fit here. And then other big sample size guys would be Bill Haas is basically like 8th on this list. He's played 29 rounds, hasn't played nearly as well recently. I won't be as on him as much. Matsuyama's next, basically 9th or 10th. He's played 12 rounds. So he does have, at least a significant sample size here. I think Matsuyama can be a nice little GPP play just because he continues to have these very visible missed cuts, right? Like he's missing the cut, making a triple on 18. I think his ownership, even in this weak field, is probably going to be lower than we would expect it to be. So if I do this more recently, if I go back to the last 5 years, I might even be able to get, I already mentioned Snedeker earlier where, he's played 14 rounds. in the last 5 years, and he's basically like 10th or 12th on this list of strokes gained. He's another guy who could just absolutely pop. Much more volatile. I would not roster him or Matsuyama in a cash scenario. Lowry, I would consider. All right. Where else do we need to go here? Real quick. Actually, you know what? Let me do this. I'm going to go to the strokes gained for the last 20 weeks. That's a good time frame I like to look at. I referenced this earlier, but I do want to point it out. Andres Romero leads the way, but only 8 rounds, so throwing that away. Then it's Niemann at 1.3. Again, just what he's done already in his short career is really, really impressive. And then Billy Horschel's next here. Horschel has gained more strokes in the last 20 weeks than any of these 10K guys. The next 3 are Simpson, Lowry, and Stenson. So it's really quietly impressive on what he's done. And then if you wanted to pivot off someone like Niemann, I think Russ Henley could be interesting. Russ Henley's like 10th in this field in strokes gained over the last 20 weeks. He's $300 cheaper than Niemann. Playing really well tee to green, putting well, nearly half a stroke there. I mean, he's doing a lot of things. We've seen him show up in big spots before. So I don't think you can go wrong there. And then there's also other names on here like, Ryan Moore, I think is interesting. Steve Stricker pops off. So it's good to see that, the rest of the stats that I think might be interesting for this week correlate with guys that have been finding success recently. All right. One last quick run at the cheat sheet here because we didn't really look at it too much this week, but let's run back to it and see if we can find any interesting values. Jason Kokrak, okay, 3 top 20s in his last 4 starts, including a 3rd place at the Greenbrier and a 19th at the PGA Championship. He also finished 16th here last year. You could get me to buy Jason Kokrak at $7,900. Let's see. Anybody else that might be interesting? Rory Sabatini, at least the last time he teed it up, which was in Canada, he finished 12th. It was really bad for a while before that. But the last 2 times he's played here at Sedgefield, he's got a 4th place and an 8th place. Now they are, 4th was last year and 8th was back in 2013. But that's a very small sample of recent form and course history that are kind of converging here. Let's see who else we can find down at the bottom. Gets ugly pretty quick. Mackenzie Hughes. He's got 3 straight top 16s. Now, he's played some of these weaker field events, right? Like Greenbrier. The John Deere was okay, I guess, this year. And then the RBC Canadian. That's a good run for him. Didn't play the WGC, didn't play the PGA Championship, but, now gets an opportunity to continue this stretch. He's only $6,800. Could probably do worse than that. And then once you get down here in the 65s, you're really in flyer territory. If you love course horses, Carl Pedersen. I always screw that. Look at how many 2 T's, 2 S's. Man, that's a bear to spell. Let's flip to the odds real quick. So here's how I'll do this. Actually, I'll do it like this. So let's look for Vegas odd values. Hold on, there was a couple. Oh, here we go. The 40-1 guys. Okay, so Matt Fitzpatrick and Brendan Steele are both 40-1 to win this. They are both cheaper than guys at 50-1, for example. So Matthew Fitzpatrick's 8,200 and 40-1 to win. Harold Varner III is 50-1, worse odds, and he costs $700 more. Brendan Steele, same thing. Brendan Steele's actually cheaper than Peter Uihlein, who's 80-1 to win this. That's a pretty good spot for... I mean, it's a pretty good value on Steele. I shouldn't say I love him. I really don't love him by any stretch of the imagination, but the course would probably be a good one for him because he's an off-the-tee type of player, and Vegas seems to like him more than usual. Patrick Rogers and Rory Sabatini in the 60 and 66-1 range. Their peers and guys around them are more like 80 and 100-1. So that would be a pretty good value. Sam Ryder also shows up on that list. Brian Gay at 66 to 1 did play the PGA Championship, but finished. There was no MDF, but he finished 79th. At least made the cut there. He had a really good stretch earlier in the year where he went 12th, 20th, and 8th at the the St. Jude, the U.S. Open, and the Quicken Loans. So only $7,100. Vegas is much more optimistic than DraftKings is on him. And those are probably the biggest discrepancies in pricing in Vegas odds. So there you go. Interesting week. Let me know what you're going to do. Are you going to try to roster Webb? Which one of these 10K guys do you like the most? Is everybody all in on Joaquin Niemann? I expect that to be the case. Let's see what happens. Let me know what you guys are going to do. Tweet me. It's at DFS On Demand, or leave a comment below. Talk to you guys soon. See ya.